Intriguing form of words from your leader tonight to businesses. It was this bit that sparked me a little bit. I hear what you're saying about barriers to trade and we'll do something about it, which seems a little bit more than what was in the manifesto.
Would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we respect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Shameful.
Thank you.
Shameful.
Daisy
Not on the
Cooper.
table at this election, unfortunately, but at some point in the future, I very much hope so.
Thank you very much. Penny Mordaunt.
No, and if you have a Labour government, they will take you back in, they will tie you on defence, on migration, on regulation, without any of the benefits of membership.
And it is actually starting to come up on the doorstep, but it's coming up because of the everyday problems it's causing. Businesses who find they just can no longer trade with our nearest neighbours, people who are finding troubles travelling, some of the problems created by the visa scheme, all the paperwork that people are having to deal with, and the recognition that it's leading to problems in our food supply chain. So it is starting to come through as an issue on its own. Absolutely nowhere near as big as concerns about the cost of living or housing or indeed international affairs. But I have actually been surprised, if I'm honest myself, at how much people are starting to put the dots together to see the damage that Brexit has done to us.
Well, obviously that's from your perspective, but intriguing form of words from your leader tonight to businesses. It was this bit that sparked me a little bit. I hear what you're saying about barriers to trade and we'll do something about it, which seems a little bit more than what was in the manifesto.
Yeah, and look, I think it's good because I thought actually what Keir said was right. We've got long-standing problems in the UK economy, and in those challenges, Brexit has disproportionately compounded them. Because frankly, there are many things that you can fight in life, but geography isn't one of them. So your ability to trade with your neighbours is absolutely crucial to your economy. And businesses have been saying, because one of the things I think people don't realise is, look, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement was a bad deal. That's why some of us didn't support it at all. But what this government has done since has actually compounded some of the barriers that people are facing. You know, and it is actually starting to
One of the remarkable things of Brexit now, whether you are for or against it, it's broken the Tory Party. It's broken the Tory Party. The Brexiteers won, majority were Conservative, but getting it, doing it, living with it afterwards has broken them. It's exhausted them. It's taken away all their bandwidth. They had no time. And then, of course, the pandemic came along and that made it doubly difficult. But it's a bit like the Corn Laws in the 1840s. The repeal of the Corn Laws destroyed that Conservative Party as we knew it, and a new one had to rise from the ashes. Brexit has destroyed the Conservative Party as we've known it. It's divided it, it's exhausted it, it's made it almost childish as they change leader after leader, and the Prime Ministership becomes a game of Tory musical chairs.
Andrew Neil has actually conceded that Brexit is like the repeal of the Corn Laws. He refers to this of the repeal of the Corn Laws of 1846 and the impact that had on the Conservative Party at the time. But in truth, and I've been saying this for some considerable time, Brexit is like a repeat of the Corn Laws on British agriculture. It's interesting that that has come up. It's one of the things that I fell out with the Liberal Democrat, Liberal Reform, who are the mostly in control of the party and the decisions that they're making. And that is why I predominantly left the party, because it was clear that there was no real aim within the Liberal Democrats to actually do anything about getting rid of Brexit, because they support the crisis and the actual free trade divergence from EU regulations and, completely separating from Europe. And that is why I cannot vote for the Liberal Democrats this election, and it is why I am supporting the Labour Party, because they've committed to a veterinary agreement and non-divergence. I do not want to see our food security decimated by a free trade experiment.
I have always recognised that Brexit for farming and food is very similar to what the repeal of the Corn Laws did in 1846. It ultimately caused an agricultural depression because imports were allowed to flood in and undercut British food. In 1846, it did ensure cheaper food. Brexit, of course, is actually making food more expensive because of inflation and the other problems associated with Brexit. But the other thing to recognise that in 1846 we had a growing empire. Now we don't have any empire at all, and we're very exposed without having any real food security. After the repeal of the Corn Laws, it did culminate in 2 world wars and Britain nearly starved. But we did redirect food from the empire. Indeed, India starved. They had a famine because grain was redirected to Britain. And we're not in that situation now. We are very exposed. And that is why I am very anxious about getting rid of these trade barriers. And this is the main reason why I am supporting Labour this election. The commitment to a veterinary agreement and alignment of EU regulations gives me huge optimism.
In the short term, there's no question that agriculture would find it very tough. No question at all. But remember...
Very tough means people losing their jobs.
Very tough, or people find new markets. Things move. This is dynamic, because also we'll have access to other markets around the world. In the short term, there will be winners and losers. There always are, with whatever you do. We'll have 39 billion to help those who are short-term inconvenienced. Long-term, economically, I think it's the right thing.
So this is a wheat field. And there is some wheat, as you can see, but there's huge bare patches, and that is because of the continued rain that we had since October. We were flooded on this farm for pretty much 6 months. This field is a little bit higher than many of the others, so some of the wheat has actually survived. But it really isn't very much, and we're not alone. Many farms in Britain and Northern Europe have been impacted very badly by the weather in this last few months, and it is going to have a dramatic impact on our food stocks, together with the Brexit reality that farmers have been incentivised to take land out of food production and plant flowers. And just through here, if you look just beyond in that field, that is last year's maize crop, which we still haven't got around to cutting. We haven't had time. It should have been cut in October, but it was so wet we couldn't get the vehicles onto the field. And we haven't had time to cut it since it dried out. We're glad that it's raining today, because believe it or not, things are getting a little bit too dry. So we welcome this rain at the moment, but we need some heat to ensure that everything grows. Cattle are getting very fed up with the rain and the miserable start to summer and the non-existent spring. We really need some warm weather. Another very large field which has got nothing growing in it this year. Just to give you an idea of how much land is out of production. If you look out your window as you're travelling, no doubt you'll see lots of fields like this that are not or no longer producing food. Last year this field was full of spring wheat.
Given the fact that most of the Labour MPs are pro-EU, I am confident that Labour, once in power, will get rid of Brexit, and that is how they're going to achieve their ambitions for growth.